Aloha, welcome to another episode of E Honua, and we're continuing this, I guess it's turning into a series now of conversations about Mauliola in particular. In the last video, we talked about what is Mauliola and why it's important, and in particular around the context of this, we're, at least in Hawaii, we're in a second phase of lockdown with COVID-19, and what can we do? What can we do with this with this crazy time that we're in, to actually like ground ourselves and find some healing and some positive transformation in the midst of all of this. So now we're talking about Ha in particular, and how that is the foundation of Mauliola, and what its connection is to Pule in particular, because we need we need all the Pule we can get. So yeah, Kumu Aʻiaʻi, if you want to introduce this topic and why we need to be talking about this now.
Okay, aloha mai kākou. Yes, now is the best time to talk about everything and anything that has to do with our health, with our well-being, with our mental stability, with physical wellness. And so, as you may or may not know, the hula community, who call themselves Hua Makahikina, has sent out an invitation to the lehu lehu, which means to everyone, hula, non-hula, Hawaiian, non-Hawaiian, everyone who is alive at this time in Hawaii. And an invitation has been sent forth to partake of Lāhui Kānaka, which is a kind of kapu that they are doing to promote wellness and to combat COVID from a cultural, spiritual, physical perspective. And so with all that is happening, there have been numerous talks. Please check the OHA website for our webinars. You can also check Facebook for a page entitled Lāhui Kānaka. And there is a lot of information coming out. And so I just want to add to that. I strongly believe that Ha is the foundation to Mauliola. So just in case you missed the broadcast on Mauliola, you can find it on E Honua on Emily's YouTube page. But Mauliola is our health, is our well-being. You know, we have the word in Hawaiian, ola kino, which is our physical health. But we're part of our lesson right now as humanity is being reborn into unity is to understand how everything is connected. And, you know, at one point during the age of rationalization, we thought it was so cool to compartmentalize everything and divide it and put it into its cute little own box and everything. But we know that everything overlaps and everything in the universe works together. And so as humanity is being reborn into unity at this time, it is important that we revisit our understandings of certain terminology and of things, you know, because for me, I always just thought, okay, I knew what Mauliola was, but I always use Ola Kino just because I did the translation in my head because I was coming from English speaking and then translating into Hawaiian. But the deeper that I go into my culture and into my language, the vai is in our understanding and in our words. And so Mauliola is the breath of life. Mauliola is our health and well-being. There is even a deity or an akua, not so much a deity, but an akua, a natural process known as Mauliola. And so as these are being examined and looked forth and understandings are coming out everywhere, I mean, people, you know, there's the Mauliola podcast. OHA just did a talk on Mauliola where they brought in Western trained doctors who are Hawaiian who can share as well a cultural perspective. And so, you know, mine has always been the spiritual perspective that my guides prompt me to talk about. And so they were like, hurry up, aren't you going to talk about Pule? And then all of a sudden it turned in, you better talk about Ha first. And so this talk is going to be about Ha, which is the breath of life and what I consider to be the foundation of Mauliola. To me, we cannot talk about Mauliola without first looking at Ha. Yeah. And so, as I mentioned before, COVID, though it may seem to be a time of many negative impacts, it is a time of great spiritual lessons that will come to us both individually and collectively as individual countries, as individual families, as well as to humanity overall. And so one of the lessons that come into this and is the Ha, or the breath, the breathing. And it's so fitting because when we look at COVID, the virus for what it is and the way that it impacts human life, it specifically impacts the breathing, the ability to breathe. And people who have all those other symptoms like fever and things, but when it comes to a head, it is the breathing that is affected. And so we need to start off with understanding what breath is and what breathing is. And breathing is our connection from the physical world to the universe. And you can see the word universe as the source or as the one. For some people, it's God. But this is our connection to that bigger picture for us as humans. And, you know, everything has a rhythm and everything has a movement of energy. And sometimes we just fall out of that rhythm. And then so we need to get back into that rhythm. And the quickest way to get back into that rhythm and to reconnect with the bigger picture, with the universe, with God, with the source, is through breath. And so when something threatens our life, it also threatens our breath, because without the breath, we don't have physical life. So, you know, the universe is, and we are dynamic. We are like a micro universe within the macro universe, and we are dynamic. We are ever changing. It is the process of seeking the balance that creates perfection. Perfection is not a static state. It is dynamic, it is moving, and it is that constant teeter-tottering and seeking the balance between those relationships, those pilina that we have as humans that allow us to feel unified and to feel that lokahi, to feel that unity. And once we get into that stream, we also begin to understand the term eternalness. It is the consciousness through breath and the continued ongoing connection to the source that elevates our vibration and eventually brings us to enlightenment. So we want to focus on Ha, and we know that Ha is something very important to us. From the moment we enter into this physical life, we wait for that first cry of the baby, and we know the baby is okay, right? Because as the baby partakes the air into the lungs and begins that process of Ha until the very last Ha is breathed and the person expires or passes. So Ha is essential to us being alive. It is essential to all the lessons that we have to learn from being in physicality, from being incarnated into human form. And from it also allows us to be part of humanity. So aside from our individual journey, you know, different countries, different cultures, families, we have all these other journeys that we're a part of, as well as the big journey of humanity, you know, kind of like the age of Aquarius thing. It affects everybody. So in order to bring somebody back to life, you need Ha. And so I go back to the story of Hi'iaka when she was going to bring Lohio back to life. And she aligned him to the cardinal directions. And then she also, so that was like a cross, right? North, south, east, west. But she also created another intersection point, which was a pe'a. And it had a common intersection point, or a kiko, a pico, right in the middle. And that was essential for her to bring Lohio back to life. So in that process, what she did was she prayed over water. And when we look at water, H2O, we see there's hydrogen from the sun, and then the oxygen in the air that we breathe. And so we are Vai. You know, when I was in school, we were 70% water. The human body is 70%. Now, you know, there's studies and people that say we're even up to 90% water, our entire physical being. And so, you know, Hawaiians, we knew that Kawaiola was the living water. We also understand the Wairua, which are the two waters, the physical water and the cosmic water that allows us to be alive at this time. But, you know, the Ha affects us on many different levels. And on a physical level, which is probably we're aware of when we get out of breath, when we're running, when we're doing exercise, we're dancing hula, we're building stamina, we're hiking. And we realize that the more we do, there's more demands on our breathing. And so we adjust accordingly. And then there are other times where it's not an unconscious adjustment, or it's a very conscious adjustment, such as in giving birth, when we breathe in a certain way. Yeah. For example, did you know that if you're out of breath, if you take 2 long breaths followed by 3 short breaths, and you repeat that a couple times, you come back into your breathing rhythm right away? Rather than if you just sit there just trying to catch your breath. If you intentionally breathe 2 long breaths, then 3 followed by 3 short ones, in 1 or 2 of those cycles, you have your breath back and you're not out of breath anymore. So guided, focused breathing is essential. It's very important. And I believe that what COVID is doing is drawing our attention to the importance of Ha. It's drawing our attention so that we can become more aware. So we know that Ha is affected immensely by our emotional state of being. Yeah. A lot of times when people have asthma, you know, the doctors even will say, oh yeah, it's, you know, what kind of emotional problems or hardship are they going through? Because emotion has always been a trigger for asthma. You know, sometimes it's the cold weather, sometimes it's this, but a lot of times deep-seated asthma in young children and even in older adults, you know, who didn't always have asthma, all of a sudden they do. And it has to do with those emotions. When people begin to hyperventilate, when people go into shock, they stop breathing. When they have sleep apnea, where they all of a sudden stop in the middle of while they're sleeping. You know, then we have things like shortness of breath. And it's a warning sign for a heart attack, for a throat. But even in something like the common cold, our breathing, our Ha is affected. We become congested and we're trying to breathe, and all of our air passages become inflamed, or they become clogged up with mucus. And so all of these things influence our Ha. And the Ha is also important on in your mental vehicle. If you don't have enough air, your thinking process, your thought process is not clear. Yeah. And it is the same as if you don't have enough water. So there's a really close relationship that Ha has with water, because we are water. And so the Ha is the rhythm that helps that energy to move in our bodies, which is water. So, you know, when we think of Ha, it can be looked at in general as the breath of life. But when we look at the process of breathing, we inhale and we reach the point of fullness, and we exhale and we reach the point of emptiness. So at each of those points of the process, there is the process of inhaling. There's the process where you are totally full and connected. There's the process where you begin to exhale. And then there is that temporary moment when you don't have the air in your lungs. And every time that happens, it's kind of like a mini figurative death. But we have the ability to recreate and be reborn with that very next breath that we intake. And that's why in healing, Ha is so important. We can breathe in the good energy and we can expel the negative energy. Yeah. So we're talking about vibration, energy, emotions, all of those things. And so that's why we are not the same. I'm not the same person as when I started speaking to you. Neither is Emily, because all this time we have been breathing. Now, when we have focused breathing, of course, this process speeds up and we have a clearer vision and understanding of what happens. But, you know, breathing is a therapy, breathing in itself. That's why yoga is so popular, and yoga is very effective for some people, because it is focused breathing. And when we focus, we have the ability to increase our awareness. Yeah. So when we meditate, we breathe. When we pule, we breathe. When we're sleeping, we breathe. And the minute something threatens that ability to breathe, you know, we are, something in our alarm system in our body goes off. So that's what brings me to Pule, because Pule is loosely translated as the word prayer. But for me, Pule is more than that. It is not simply the intention. Intention is not enough. And I will say this again for like the 100th time. If all it took was the intention, the world wouldn't be how it was. We need the intention to be followed through by action. We need that intention to manifest on a physical plane in order for things to take place. And one of the things that acts as a catalyst of that is the sound. Yeah, because sound has the ability to travel through and beyond the realms. It is not limited to the human physical realm. And so when a prayer is vocalized with a certain vibration, the response of the universe is quicker. And when we can consistently do this, it begins to elevate our own vibration, which increases our frequency. And the increase in that frequency is what leads to what we call enlightenment. And enlightenment is accessing consistently those higher realms of knowledge, of truth, you know? And light is the for humanity's sake, light is the physical manifestation of truth. And that's where the enlightenment comes in. It also has to do with that because when we increase our vibration, the density of our matter diminishes. The physical matter that we are composed of, that we're made of, it diminishes. And so because there is less of that, we physically feel lighter in the weight sense. So, you know, that concept of light being the manifestation of truth. There is only one truth, and it is our own truth. Everything is subjective because objectivity is a fallacy. Objectivity is something that comes from rational mind thinking that excludes the spirit, that excludes other dimensions of who we are. You know, and in the university, you learn all this now. But in the universe, you know, we have the kuleana to take care of our own little universe, you know, and recently the word pālama has come out. And pālama is our own little universe. It's our safe zone. It's that space where we set up our parameters. It's the space where we choose what to allow and what not to allow into our world. And so, you know, that term pālama goes way beyond just the little explanation of your little bubble where you live. It's not a bubble. It is an entire universe that we are. And we, as that entire universe, is like one little cell. You know, I always use the jigsaw puzzle thing, but we're that one little cell that is integral to the whole, that is integral to the one, you know. And Pule and Ha allow us to be conscious and fully present, instead of just partially present and partially conscious. And it is our kuleana, it is our responsibility to take care of our pālama. It is our responsibility to be aware of our ha and to breathe. It is our responsibility to live in the present. And this is the way that we combat COVID, by making conscious choices of what we do on all levels, whether physical level, wearing a mask, washing your hands, but even to the point of bringing balance to ourselves and our bodies through prayer, through breathing, through physical exercise, paying attention to the foods that we partake, including controlling our thoughts. And Ha influences all of those things. If we allow our thoughts to take over, most humans are either living in the memories of the past or the dreams of the future, but we're not present in the moment. And being present in the moment, it is what is essential and imperative to the well-being of the universe. It is what helps to create the balance in the universe. So that's my little talk on Ha. So Emily, you have any thoughts, any comments? We're trying to keep it short, you know, because we have a tendency to ramble.
Yes, I'm so proud of us right now. So the most recent thought that I had at the end of your talk is Pulama's talk about the Kavava continuum, and how, like, this era that we're in is the you know, the acronym NOW, the new old way, and so I'm like, you know, I think, and you know, maybe people watching would agree that, you know, we go to all these talks, and then we listen to all these conversations, and we read all these things, and we watch all these videos, and you know, and it's not, in so many ways, like, none of the stuff that we're talking about is new. And you know, we've heard it all before in so many different ways, but at the same time, the reminder is so important. It's so powerful. You know, simple old news, but good news. And,
yeah, can I interject? You know, it's kind of like, you know how when somebody recommends a book and they're so excited, and so you try to read it and it doesn't say anything to you and you put it down, and then say like 5 years later you pick up the book and you just devour it. And it's because, you know, this old knowledge, until now we weren't ready to hear it. The Lāhui is ready to hear this now. You know, the Mauna has taken us to another level. And so I think that, yeah, it really is. None of this is new. None of this is my invention. It actually comes from my guides. So I want to give credit where credit is due. I am just the mouthpiece, you know. So Yeah, I think that's really good that you brought up Pulama's concept.
Yeah, and so I'm looking at it again now. I'm looking at the worksheet, and it's the wa o pula pula, and that's the now epic, the new old way epic, because or epoch. I don't know how to pronounce it properly, but I mean the turning to everything that is old, but but we're exercising it in a new way, or we're seeing the old in a new way. I think, I mean, that's the time, and how you said, like, where, in certain cases, like, we weren't necessarily ready or receptive to hearing what, what was there for us to hear and implement in the past, but now, here we are.
Yeah, not to say anything about, all of the politics involved, of the cover-up of trying to attempt for us not to access that information and not to access that knowledge. I cannot just be quiet about that, because it's too much. It's like right now, what are the government leaders? The whole reason Lāhui Kānaka came about from the hula community was because the powers that be were just not doing it. They were not doing it, And so, Lāhui Kānaka is a grassroots movement and comes from a cultural point of view, but it brings in the spiritual. And so that's where we are. We're these little spiritual pula pulas. We're not just your average everyday pula pula. We've upped the notch, and the bar has been raised. So we are special pula pula.
Yeah. And I keep thinking too of that, the question of being present, and I think especially with lockdown how it is, and with we could go list all the things that's going on right now, between the fires, and the police brutality and the incompetent leadership who calls themselves the government. It's really hard to be present, and it's hard to want to breathe and bring yourself into the present moment. Or I'll speak for myself, and that feeling of congestion that you're talking about, that especially if you actually have pre-existing, like, lung conditions, those emotions, that congested, that's carried in your lungs, in your body, is hard to want to be present with that, and it's hard to want to just want to go there in order to move it. It's necessary, like, I think in an intellectual sense, that me personally, I could think, oh yes, let's move all these congested emotions, and let's get the body moving, and let's get those emotions flowing, and let's feel lighter. And then you got to sit down and actually do it, or stand up and actually do it, and then it's just like, no.
But no. Emily, you don't. The good part is that we don't have to do it overnight. And you know how sometimes when it seems like life is throwing you curveballs, and you actually kind of get soulless from finding out that somebody's going through that too, or they're going through even worse. It's a part of our human existence. And it is also so natural when you see something that you don't know or that might hurt to take a step back, right? I mean, you got to be crazy to head on straight into it. And so, all of those different systems, and, but that's where, I really like the approach from the Lāhui Kānaka. It's like, you do what you can. Nobody expects us to just transform overnight. There are those who do, but, hats off to them. Hello. But, it's all about, as we start to realize and become aware, and, maybe for now, I'm just gonna do that. I'm like Ka'io says, we just eat a little bit more poi, just eat a little bit more of unprocessed things, give up one little thing, Look at me when I started walking for my knees. you know, after the 3 months after the stem cell, how far did I get on the first day? I went up to the neighbor's mailbox and I turned around and I came back because I was in so much pain. And now I'm all the way down to the end of the road and I crossed the street and my body feels better. Everything feels better. But, you know, it didn't happen overnight. I've been doing this for 3 weeks, going on 4. And, you know, I got to psych myself up to do it. And so I told all my friends, I've told everybody in chant class, every time you see me, ask me, did you do your walking? You know, because sometimes it's not enough just to be accountable to yourself. That's what your friends are there for, to help you.
Yeah, and it just occurred to me too that like the sense of safety to do that work, to be, you know, I mean, to be, you know, focused on the breath in general. And it's, how do I want to say that? Like, in order to create a sense of safety where there might not be in the external environment, like it's just making me think again about what you said about how like we need to be the ones taking responsibility for ourselves as our own little universe, and to be making that commitment, like be the safest, you know, be the safest place for you to go and for you to be in that process of like releasing and calling in what needs to be there to replace the congested, you know, grief and pain and all those things that are carried in the lungs and in the rest of the body. So yeah, so I think that's one of the things I'm taking away too, is that, you know, if I gotta be the safest.
I think it's security and what we're familiar with. You know, it's kind of like, even if it's a negative thing, because it's familiar to us, it doesn't scare us, and we think it's the lesser of the two evils rather than venturing off into the unknown, right? And this is where the self-talk comes in, you know. This is where the self-talk, and if you can't quite do it on your own, then reach out to your neighbor, reach out to your friend. That's what friends are for. We're here to support each other. We can't fix each other's life, no matter how much we love them, no matter how much we want. but we can support them in their journey and help them to, you know, confirm to them and remind them that there is a safe space for that kind of healing to happen.
Mm. Okay, so before I get too proud of ourselves for staying on time, yeah, I think we can end this here, and hopefully, hopefully see some comments from folks on the video of, you know, what their you know, their version of like doing their morning walks or everyday walks to the end of the road, or, you know, what have you, whatever we're doing to, like, you know, commit ourselves to the shift.
Well, maybe we should end by just anybody who's watching this, just take a couple deep breaths at your own pace. You don't have to hold it in for so long or exhale. We're not going to call out the inhale or exhale, but just take a few moments to breathe and to be aware. And when you're done breathing, if something just kind of pops into your head, then that is what needs attention in your life. Okay. So mahalo nui ya kākou. I hope this has been helpful. I think right now all the little bits and pieces are slowly being put out there for everyone, and thank you for taking the time with us. And I really mahalo Emily for letting me get on her YouTube channel, because I don't have the tech skills to do my own, and it causes me so much stress that I stop breathing if I think too much about that kind of stuff. But with this, I feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to. I'm relaying the messages from my guides. And so, mahalo nui loa. Don't forget to breathe. Aloha.
Aloha.